Every tragedy that strikes a boxer brings forth renewed demands that the sport be banned. But no matter how many people are killed or injured in mountain climbing, scuba diving, skiing, boating, or horseback riding, no one ever suggests that these activities be banned. There are more than 10 times as many fatalities in scuba diving alone as there are in boxing. There are more than 100 times as many in boating. The poor box. The affluent climb mountains, ride horses, go boating, skiing, or scuba diving. The affluent are regarded as adults with a right to make their own decisions and take their own risks. The poor are treated as wards, almost as the property of humanitarians. The tragic disease that struck Muhammad Ali has been blamed on boxing, even though it strikes many people who have never boxed. I am not a physician, so I don't know. Neither do most of the people who are pontificating that boxing should be banned. The alternatives open to most people who become boxers are few and very poor. Only one heavyweight champion of the world has had a college degree, Gene Tunney, more than half a century ago. Many champions have had very little education or job skills. It is hard to see how they could have earned a decent living any other way, much less have a chance at some of the good things of life that are taken for granted by writers who denounce boxing. The lives boxers led before they became boxers suggest how limited their options were. Some were delinquents or petty criminals. Jack Dempsey was once a hobo. Heavyweight champion James J. Braddock had been on welfare. If people can become test pilots, stuntmen, or lion tamers in order to try to better the condition or make their mark in the world, then why deny the same opportunities and risks to those whose only hope is boxing? The crusade against boxing is part of a general mindset that is very noble in its rhetoric and very ugly in its implications. There is nothing humanitarian about destroying one of the options of people who have very few options. This point is repeatedly forgotten or ignored in crusades for everything from slum clearance to so-called consumer protection laws. These issues may seem remote from boxing, but the underlying principle is the same. Slum clearance, for example, is essentially a matter of reducing the options of those with few options in order to please observers with many options. No one likes slums, including the people who live in them. Slum dwellers are well aware that there is better housing available elsewhere at a price. While it is possible for many slum dwellers to pay a higher price for housing, the sacrifices this would impose on their purchases of food, clothing, and other goods are not worth it to them. Otherwise, they would have made a different trade-off. Crusaders who push for slum clearance by government are simply reducing the options of the poor and forcing them into trade-offs that will please observers. Studies that show the former slum dwellers living in better housing after the slums have been torn down miss the point completely. They could have moved into better housing before if they were willing to make the sacrifices that have now been forced on them. An increase in the housing supply would represent more options, but government policy over the years has consistently destroyed more housing than it has created. This has been especially true of low-income housing. Yet reducing the options of the poor through slum clearance is considered to be humanitarian. It is in fact the height of arrogance. Many so-called consumer protection laws likewise represent arrogance masquerading as humanitarianism. All sorts of goods are sold in different quality levels with corresponding different prices. Different levels of product guarantees are also available, ranging from none at all at a flea market to money-back guarantees at more reputable and more expensive places. In short, consumer protection costs money like everything else. People already have the option of deciding how much consumer protection they want to pay for. What so-called consumer protection laws do is reduce the consumer's option. Crusaders decide how much protection is needed, and consumers are forced to pay for it, since businessmen are not about to absorb the inevitable cost increases. Once more, crusaders go away feeling noble after making people worse off. The repeated attempts to ban boxing are part of the same mindset. Boxing needs a lot better regulation. It does not need banning. The people who go into boxing need more and better options, beginning with a decent education, job skills, and work experience. They do not need one of their few options taken away to please other people.